to our guest, please.
The man that would risk his neck for his brother, man. Shout!
Chris Arps, I said on the air yesterday,
Yeah.
it's a good thing that you were in here Friday and not me, because I was angry. I was physically shaking. I was so angry at John McCain at what he did.
Do you want me to read your text on air? That you
No,
sent?
please don't. It would not be appropriate for broadcast. I'm just telling you.
That would tell everyone how you.
I know
how you felt.
I was hot.
Hey, one thing. When I came in, I heard you on the radio.
Oh no!
Of course, you're on the radio.
Well, thank you.
But you lived and worked in South Carolina for how long?
3 years.
I was gonna say that was the worst South Carolina accent I have ever heard when you were trying to mimic.
You think?
Yeah, it was like you lived down there for a while.
I did, but it's been a long time. But I can tell you about the war of northern aggression, because I did live in South Carolina.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hey, two things before we get started, if you don't mind. I'd like to toot my own horn about some of these personnel decisions that have been going on in the White House. If you'll remember at the beginning of the year, I said that Priebus was an absolute fool to take a position as a dual chief of staff, and that he probably wouldn't last long, and that Steve Bannon was probably going to force him out. Now, I did get that aspect of it wrong, that Steve Bannon forced him out, but he didn't last long, and he was gone. And then if you also remember, I said Sean Spicer. He's not going to last long in that job because he's too combative, and he's going to burn out and have stress, and he's gone. So I just have to tout my horn here on the Mark Cox Show that I called those two personnel decisions. Thank you.
So I will give credit where credit is due, although I'm not sure Spicer burned out necessarily. And
I say he was too combative.
And Priebus kept a fairly low profile during that period of time. I don't know. I think the problem with Priebus is not that he was in the untenable situation of being a co-chief of staff with Steve Bannon. I think it's the fact that he was part of the establishment that Trump was trying to defeat. And I think he was part of the problem, quite frankly.
Priebus was weak, first of all. And second, it's I feel bad for Priebus a little bit because he was brought in because he's friends with the speaker and he had the experience to try to get the president's legislative agenda, passed through Congress.
Right.
But the president wouldn't let him do his job. So he basically handcuffed his hands behind his back, threw him in the ocean and said, "Here, swim across." And then when he drowned, he fired him.
You think?
Yeah, he didn't give him a chance. He didn't give him a chance to do his job.
I just don't think he was very effective at getting the president the support he needed in Congress.
When you have a program that's not very popular and you've got different factions that are against it, I mean, what can Priebus do?
When you swim with the sharks, I mean, this is the whole thing. And as somebody who's been involved in politics for as long as you have, is you know that you can go down to Jefferson City and just applying this to state politics, and you can talk a great game on the campaign trail, but to get elected, unless you're independently wealthy, you've got to have people who are funding your campaign. Yeah. And those very same people come back when it's all over with and they have their hand out because they want something. That's how things work. Priebus has been in the swamp as head of the RNC for so long that I truly believe he was part of the problem. Yeah. And what he needed was an outsider, although Kelly is not necessarily an outsider, who's been involved in politics for years because he served under, what's his name in the Clinton administration? Who's the not Richardson, but, his name's the guy with glasses. He was the defense secretary. Who was it?
No, I'm thinking of.
Anyway, he's been involved in the political side of things for a long time. So but he wasn't an elected official and he wasn't a consultant. And he's been in the military, and I think he's going to have a much more realistic view of how to run that job than Priebus did. My opinion.
I just think it's very hard to try to get a legislative agenda passed in Congress and try to shepherd that through when your boss is like undercutting you with tweets at night. And one thing, the president is a great salesman. He wrote The Art of the Deal. When presidents, whenever they want to sell or try to get past a big initiative. It doesn't matter who the president is. They go around the country and they barnstorm, and that's all they talk about. That's all Obama did for the 12 or 15 months was talk about Obamacare. When President Bush wanted to get the prescription drug Part D passed, he went around and barnstormed the country. We just didn't see that from this president, and you know he relied too much on Priebus to try to get the thing through, and he undercut Priebus every step of the way. In my humble opinion.
Well, and that could be. The thing about it is they've got to defeat Obamacare. Now, you heard Lindsey Graham there. He likes the idea of something they haven't really considered yet, which is block granting the monies to the states. And he's got a problem with proportionment because under Obamacare, 4 states got 40% of the money and everybody else had to split up what was left. He wants to block grant the money to the states where he believes the politicians will be more accountable for how it's spent. And I said, I'm not completely opposed to that idea. I'd like to see the government get out of this more from a federal standpoint, but you still got to get rid of the mandates. You got to get rid of some of the taxes, and you're going to have a mess on your hands if you turn over $20 billion or however much it would be to the state of California, because Jerry Brown and the bunch of nuts that live out there are simply going to see it as a first of all, they're not going to think it's enough. They're going to complain that they don't have enough money, and then they're going to try to turn it into a single-payer system.
You know, it's kind of off the subject a little bit, but it kind of sounds a little bit what you were talking about Proposition P, where you just have this big pot of money, and it's like, is it going to be spent on health care? Are they going to use that money for other things? Because it's a block grant. I don't know if block grant, if it's specific, has to be for health care, but it might be spent to shore up budget deficits in these states. Who knows?
Again, there's an article in the Post today complaining about how Medicaid money, and this is where people read these stories and they get distracted. There's an article in the Post about how Medicaid money, a lot of Medicaid money is spent on special needs children across the St. Louis region, and there's never enough of it. And if the Trump people get their way and cut Medicaid, these kids would suffer first. Yeah. So the article was written by Kristen Takeda of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, posted earlier today. And what it belies, what the lie is here, is that the money's being misused because it's an unfunded mandate. So in 1975, under the Disabilities Education Act, public schools were required to provide these services for these students, but then they didn't fund it. Right. So then they started using Medicaid money to fund it. Right. And now they're bitching that there's not enough Medicaid money to fund it, and that evil Republicans want to cut Medicaid, which, again, wasn't a fact. Yeah. Medicaid wasn't being cut.
Yeah. And that may happen, and that's what I'm afraid may happen with block granting this money back to the states.
Right.
It's not going to be used for what
medical, it's designed for.
And then we're going to have what you're saying. Oh, we don't have enough money. We need more money. And it's just a perpetual cycle.
It really is. We'll get to some of your phone calls on this. 314-969-9797. We'll pick Chris's brain on that and a few other issues. Great story out of Texas. You see where this lady, I saw her, an older lady, here's somebody breaking in through her garage, grabs her pistol, shoots one of them dead, and cops came and asked her what happened. She goes, "It's Texas." Yeah. You don't break into a person's house. I know you like Texas.
I'm proud of it. I'm from Texas.
I want to tell more about that story. I want to read it to you when we come back. Much more of the Marc Cox Show still to come. Stick around.
But I wanted it that way. I think that any love is good.
This is the Marc Cox Show.
So I took what I could get.
Air Comfort Service Heating and Cooling. Weather with Dave Murray.
Partly sunny skies, a little bit of an increase in clouds as we push through the afternoon. 89 for the high tonight. Just a slight chance of a spot shower. Let's not worry about it. 70 for the low. Wednesday, chance of a spot thunderstorm. Spot again, the key word. A lot of dry time. 89. Little better chance of scattered thunderstorms late Wednesday night into Thursday. Much cooler air coming in here Friday and over the weekend. I'm Fox 2 meteorologist Dave Murray for FM News Talk 97.1.
The Marc Cox Show is sponsored in part by Granite Transformations. Let them transform your kitchen, bath, or commercial space. Explore the wide